It comes into our village and kills whoever it wants.
I can hear something now. It must be attacking the warehouses at the bottom of that hill. Wonderful!
Balverines are a werewolf-like enemy species that have appeared in every single Fable game. Whilst they hold a seemingly similar background lore to werewolves themselves, there are some differences, so let's take a look at everything official from Lionhead and within licensed work of fiction.
So according to the Oracle of Snowspire, the Balverine was descended from a terrible creature called the Balvorn, which was far more vile and savage than a Balverine. It feasted upon thousands of humans at a time. There was only one man who survived its attacks, and that man became the first Balverine. Citizens of Albion are afraid of these beasts, and with good reason. Balverines can infect others, turning them into Balverines through a bite. Perhaps because of their terrifying qualities, some have been captured and put into venues like the Arena and Crucible for gladiatorial purposes. Their natural aggressive tendencies make them perfect opponents of heroes in the battlefield. It is said that when a man gets bitten by a Balverine during the full moon, they become the much more powerful White Balverine, which was slain in the Old Kingdom through the use of silver weapons.
Yep, so we've got a bit of a canonicity warning for the next part. The following information is fully derived from Fable, the Balverine Order, so, take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, I guess. Following the ascent of a hero to the throne of Albion, the population of Balverines was driven further to the east. It has been stated that the creatures were driven eastward to a land less tamed by the machinery and mundane innovations of man, like many other mythical races. Tales have indicated that currently the most notable population of Balverines exists in the forest near Sutcliffe, so much like many other of the mythical creatures in Fable, eventually they were sort of driven out of the general area of Albion, supposedly.
Yep. Now, within these forests of Sutcliffe there is a large temple. The date of construction for the temple or its exact builders are currently unknown. However, it is currently the headquarters for an organisation known as the Balverine Order. The Balverine Order is a collection of highly sophisticated Balverines, headed by a particularly powerful Balverine known as Lugaru, who ruled over their lesser counterparts. The purpose of the Order is to slowly subvert the human race by turning its most powerful and prominent figures into members of the Balverine Order. The Order then plans to use their new stationary power to overthrow the dominance of humanity and lay waste to its civilization, thus returning the world to a more natural state that is better suited to the Balverine race.
The Balverine Order was discovered by a man named Quentin Locke, who proceeded to research and hunt down the Order. Eventually, he traced the Order to Sutcliffe, and a man named Ethan Creel, Laird of Sutcliffe. Locke suspected Creel was a member of the Balverine Order, but could not be certain, so he infiltrated a Balverine hunting expedition organised by Laird Creel as a servant. Locke also encountered Thomas Kirkman and James Skelton, two youths looking to hunt Balverines to avenge Thomas's brother's death. During the expedition, Creel lured the hunting party into the forest and a trap arranged by the Balverine Order. All the servants were immediately slain and consumed by Balverines except for Locke, who managed to escape undetected. The more prominent individuals, including two nobles, Thomas and James, and a dean of a notable school, were captured and taken to the Balverine Temple to be transformed into Balverines themselves at midnight.
Locke, who had tracked the Balverines back to the temple, rescued Thomas and James before they could be taken inside and escaped back to Sutcliffe. Once in Sutcliffe, they returned to the mansion of Laird Creel, which was revealed to have formerly been a hall of heroes. Inside, the three discovered the final resting place of the most powerful three heroes in Sutcliffe's history: the hero of will, the hero of skill, and the hero of strength. This was the tomb of the Triumvirate, a near unstoppable team of heroes who had secured themselves and their power within the tomb to keep it protected from the forces of evil. Inside, Locke, Kirkman, and Skelton proceeded to collect the artifacts of the Triumvirate and become the Triumvirate themselves temporarily. Using their newfound powers, the Triumvirate returned to the temple and launched a full assault. They slaughtered many Balverines, possibly in the hundreds, and killed Lugaru himself, and thus rescued the captured nobility and Dean.
Afterwards, at least Locke went on to hunt the remaining members of the Balverine Order. This culminated when Locke shot and killed a duke from a neighbouring country to Albion, who turned out to be a member of the Order himself. Locke presumed this to be the last member of the Order, however, this hasn't been confirmed, so he may have hunted them all down, but we're not sure.
So, let's talk about some of the characteristics of the Balverines. And we know they share quite a lot of similarities with werewolves, such as their wolf-like appearance, half wolf, half man style. And they have the black or brown fur with piercing yellow eyes, and then this noticeable vulnerability to silver. Although in Fable 2 this was stated as mere superstition, but then the silver nitrate lamps in Fable 3 did prove it to be the case again.
Yeah, Balverines are also much stronger than a normal human, and they even rival heroes in physical strength, as displayed by their lean musculature and unique ability to jump high into the air, literally disappearing for several seconds before they land again. So that's pretty insane, honestly. Like, I would love to see the actual physics behind how much force was required to make those jumps. But yeah, it's pretty. They're
Some
very,
serious
very
hang
strong.
time, man.
Yeah,
Some
they are
serious
very,
hang
very
time.
strong.
So in the 4th issue of the Bowerstone Times, it stated that they are far less hairy than werewolves and lack snouts.
Yeah, so I feel like definitely their design is obviously werewolf-like, but definitely a few differences, especially in terms of, I guess they're a bit more humanoid than even werewolves are. They're sort of closer to the human side than even some of the werewolves in some other fiction seem to look.
Yes. Yeah. So here, for another canonicity warning, there's some more from Fable the Balverine Order. So they've been shown that was not previously considered possible, such as the Balverine Order themselves. There are at least 2 classes of Balverines then: the lesser Balverines, who are the remnants of men bitten but not killed during a Balverine attack, and then the greater Balverines, who were bitten and turned at midnight during the course of a full moon. So this kind of reminds me of lesser and higher vampires from The Witcher, in a way.
Yeah, so just in straight up strength, we pretty much see this as the case in even just Fable 1, with the normal Balverines and then like the white Balverines. And it makes total sense as well that the Balverine Order would purposefully keep captives until a full moon and then turn them into the greater Balverines, so that they strengthen their order even more, rather than just like blindly biting people at any point and turning them into just, normal fodder. So I think that's pretty cool. They know when and how to turn people into the stronger form of Balverines, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, and it serves the purpose of the propagation of the species, which is to have stronger and more intelligent beings. Does help them survive, basically. So yeah. So it basically says here that the lesser Balverine, the higher Balverines are extremely sophisticated and much more powerful than their lesser counterparts. They can change form at will and are capable of human speech even. So it is evident here that the higher Balverines essentially rule over their lesser cousins, whom they seem to regard as little more than beasts themselves.
Balverines are able to attack with their claws as well as by leaping at their victim. They are also able to jump high into the air, like we said, completely out of sight, disappearing for several seconds at a time before landing again, usually behind you. However, this can be countered by simply turning around when the Balverine jumps. Balverines tend to use short, fast combo attacks, and they can also lunge at you from quite a distance, which can be really, really annoying if you're doing the arena mission in Fable 1, because sometimes you'll be fighting a pack of Balverines and then one will just come flying from off screen and knock you over. So yeah, they often jump all the way off your screen up into the air, but before they do so, they will howl for a second or so, usually letting you know, so you can attack or heal yourself during that time.
Sometimes your attacks don't work when they're about to do that as well, because it's like scripted that they have to do the jump. And then other times, if you've got, I've never worked it out in all my playthroughs. I'm not sure if it's just to do with your level of strength, because later on in the game, when you've used your XP and you've got a legendary weapon, for example, you generally can kind of, especially the normal Balverines, you can kind of hack through them in 2 or 3 hits. So it doesn't generally get to that point, but early on in the game when you first meet them, the amount of times that I'm like, I can hear the howl, I know he's about to jump, if I can just get him, but it kind of almost blocks you out. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I guess they get like super armor or something that kind of just forces your attacks to not do the exact amount of damage needed to kill it, so they can still do them.
I think the armor you're looking for is plot armor.
Plot armor, yeah.
So they do come back in Fable 2 as well. As we mentioned, they're in all the games, and they're first encountered on the road to Westcliff, which in my latest playthrough I'm actually not far off getting to that point again. They have their own dungeon called the Howling Halls that the player must get through to get to the Westcliff camp, and also their fort in the arena known as the Crucible. During the Hero of Skill quest, while returning the Shadow Seal to its owner, you must fight several shadows that act and fight just like Balverines.
Yep, while returning along the Westcliff Road, a woman named Lilith, a very suspicious name, requests your help saving her son from Balverines. However, she betrays you to her quote-unquote children, which were the Balverines themselves, for food before jumping out of sight. This indicates the ability to shapeshift and greater intelligence for more advanced Balverines. She appears later after the hero defeats all her children as a white Balverine, so she's obviously one of the greater Balverines that is capable of intelligence and transforming it well, so there you go.
So they're then encountered in Reeva's Manor after Reeva's party guests transform and attack the hero and page, although it's possible to encounter them in the wild before this event if your hero is high enough. Is this not in Fable 3? I think
this is Fable 3, yeah.
Yeah, so basically when you go to Reeva with Paige, and he, basically, we covered this in the Reeva video, but yeah, all of his guests basically turn into Balverines and then attack. And then they come up later in that game in Silver Pines and Millfields, Mystic Valley, and Hero of Balstone's Tomb. And they also seem to have the ability to take on human form and live in Albion amongst its population. So they become more like regular werewolves at this point, to be honest. Yeah,
I guess over time, the ones who are able to do that are the ones who survive. So it's kind of like survival of the fittest, as you'd expect, really. The longer time goes on, the more it just sort of, I guess, becomes those types of Balverine rather than the ones that are really obvious, because the obvious ones have been killed off. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and something that we'll do in another video, but is relevant in this case, is that Fable, we've talked about this, where Fable really is, Lionhead sort of just took all these particularly European, particularly British-centric story, although, obviously not exclusively, centered sort of mythology and fairy tales, and put it into this world. And so it's almost like what they're saying is Albion really is, Britain, the island, the main island, Wales, Scotland, and England, with Ireland not far away, and it's really almost like telling the story of this is what the old kingdom is. That's really what happened in Britain. You know what I mean? Like Balstone is London, and they had the Industrial Revolution later on, and during that time, some of these fairy tales disappear a little bit. They become more mythology, and people haven't seen them in a while, so they stop believing them to be true. We'll do a video on this, but I think Fable really is just basically this telling of if all the old wives' tales and fairy tales and mythology was kind of true. And they even have like the sword and the stone, and as I said, we'll do a video on this, but the idea of by the time of Fable 3, Balverines have really just become like regular werewolves, where they most of the time they're people, but occasionally they can change. That's kind of like the Victorian age werewolf story, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it just goes to show, like, it's what would be imagined if in real life, all these wives' tales was still a thing, just hiding in plain sight almost, under our new society. It makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a really cool concept that Fable covers over the course of like the time over the 3 games as time progresses. Anyways, so once you become the ruler of Albion, you receive a quest in which a noble wants to donate a valuable Balverine statue worth 500,000 gold. However, when you arrive to claim it, you are informed that it has been stolen, of course. In order to retrieve it, you must travel to Silver Pines, where there is a village under near constant threat from Balverines. When you confront the thief, he is revealed to be Connor, a villager who was exiled into the dangerous forest for falling asleep on watch. Yearning for revenge, he offers to give to give you the statue and let you leave unscathed if you destroy the village's silver nitrate torches, which are its only real defense against the Balverines. This, however, is a good/evil decision, obviously, and if you refuse, he will order the Balverines to attack and you must rush back to the village to help defend it. Once you defeat many of the Balverines, Connor will arrive and transform into a white Balverine, and you must defeat him and claim the statue from a villager who found it on his body. If the hero chooses to aid the Balverines by destroying the torches, the village will change. New residents will be named the Thug. So I guess all the residents become evil, will begin to appear, and if attacked, will show their true forms by transforming to Balverines as well, and attacking you, supporting the notion that the Balverines have the ability to evolve and adapt. So they're not just taking over the village by killing everyone, they're actually turning everyone into Balverines as well.
Yeah. And then in the DLC, The Traitor's Keep, Balverines can be found running wild at the Godwin estate, and many have been subjected to experimentation by the island's sole resident, Mary Godwin. As a result, they can be seen cooperating with Hollow Men in their attacks, and Mary has apparently been successful in creating poison Balverines. They are first seen in the bowels of the mansion, just before the final confrontation with Mary, who has them submerged in tanks. They break out and attack when the hero and Commander Milton approach. Upon return trips to Godwin Estate, poisoned Balverines will spawn on the grounds.
Albion's infamous monsters reappear in Fable the Journey, first encountered in the deep forest of Thorndeep, a location similar to the Silver Pines in both appearance and Balverine infestation. Balverines retain their infamous speed and their ability to inflict incredible damage with their claws. As in previous Fable games, Balverines will charge Gabriel in groups, leaping back into the tree line to avoid any reprisals, so you can't really counterattack them. They're very in and out.
Well, you played the journey. I don't think I really did. What did you think when you came across them in that game?
It's been a long time since I played it, but I definitely feel like they're a bit scarier because you're definitely not quite as not quite as competent as some of the other heroes you played as in other Fable games. So they're definitely a lot more of a threat. And obviously, you're sort of in a first-person perspective as well, with mostly ranged attacks at your disposal. So yeah, they're a lot scarier seeing them up close and personal rather than from the third-person perspective, just kind of hacking through them as a proper hero.
Yeah, I thought so. Alright, so let's get into the subtypes that we've mentioned some of before, but we'll get stuck in now. So the first non-standard subtype that you come across is in the first Fable game, and in fact is in the first real quest that you come across it, and that's the White Balverine. And it's my favourite form of Balverine, if I'm honest. So White Balverines are supposed to be normal people who are bitten during a full moon and therefore transformed. They are named for their distinctive white coats and are larger and stronger than normal Balverines. Thus, they often serve as kind of leaders within the pack and can summon lesser Balverines at will by howling.
The White Balverine is first encountered near Knothole Glade during the appropriately named quest White Balverine. The White Balverine was a man who transformed after killing a previous White Balverine threatening the village. His wife mourns his loss and helps the hero kill the beast, which is her husband, to help the hero. The woman gives him a silver augmentation to take advantage of the Balverine's weakness to silver itself. They are also present in the Witchwood Arena when you go through that quest as well. There's multiple waves that include one and then I think two White Balverines at the same time. Surprisingly, although it is said in that only weapons with silver augmentations can harm the White Balverine, it isn't entirely necessary to use only silver augmentations, but it does increase your damage greatly. So you can kill them with a normal sword, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, absolutely. So White Balverines then return in Fable 2, where they are first encountered in Westcliff on the journey to enter the Crucible. On the way, the hero will find a woman saying she was attacked by Balverines. However, she's actually a White Balverine in disguise, spoiler alert. She will ask you to save her son that was taken by the Balverines, but she will lead you into a nest of Balverines in the Howling Halls. Once you have killed all the normal ones, she will call for vengeance and will come rushing to attack. As was the case in Fable, the White Balverines are bigger, faster and stronger and can take a lot more punishment. And later on there are then others to be found in the Crucible and the Colosseum.
Yep, White Balverines make their first appearance, so I think this is in Fable 3. White Balverines make their first appearance in the Stolen Statue quest, with the leader, as we said, of the local Balverine pack, a man named Connor, turning into one before leading the assault. Once again, White Balverines in Fable 3 are superior to their more common brethren in every single way. White Balverines are often found in the midst of normal Balverine packs and will usually lead the charge. White Balverines can be found consistently in the Balverine-infested forest of Silver Pines. They can also be found in Mistpeak Valley once the hero is strong enough to actually go there and fight them.
Yeah, and then they appear again in A Hero's Tale, and this game actually begins with a White Balverine killing the parents of the hero of Southcliff and attacking Giles, also known as Farmer Giles. Of course he was. The Balverine later appears at the hero of Southcliff's wedding and takes his would-be spouse to the castle on the hill for a final climactic showdown. After the hero triumphs against the White Balverine, it subsequently turns into the Duke of Southcliff, who begs for mercy, claiming that the curse has been broken. The hero can then choose to kill the Duke or not.
White Balverines are once again seen in Fable the Journey, as we said. Due to the change in combat compared to other Fable games, the White Balverines of Fable the Journey are not nearly as dangerous or intelligent as their brethren from other games, because obviously there's less room for AI to be, I guess, adjusted, because you're sort of just moving along a single track. So obviously I think in canon they are supposed to be as, the more intelligent of the bunch, but in the game they're kind of the same. However, they are noticeably tougher to kill, and they require way more will attacks to be used against them to actually bring them down. So they are still the superior of the bunch, just less noticeably because of the game itself.
Yep. So then we come across the Frost Balverine, who... This is in Fable the Lost Chapters and Fable Anniversary. Frost Balverines are essentially regular Balverines, but with ragged white fur. So not white Balverines, but white fur, to blend in with the, I guess, the snowy locations you find them in. So not much is actually known of them, but for the fact that they live in the northern wastes. They are much more dangerous than the regular Balverines and will deliver a bigger punch, but are weaker than white Balverines. The white coat of the Frost Balverines could be compared to the coat of like an Arctic wolf used for camouflage, as mentioned. So they are found anywhere in the northern wastes, and during the quest Oracle of Snowspire, Frost Balverines repeatedly spawn on bridges and narrow enclosures, and especially in the necropolis as well when you're trying to find the what would you call them? The expressions to communicate with the Oracle.
Yeah. So the next Balverine type that we come across is the Blooded Balverine. I nearly said vampire because the word blood really confused me there. Made distinct by their brick red fur, Blooded Balverines often assume a leadership role when White Balverines are not present. Blooded Balverines are more powerful than standard Balverines and do not usually share the weakness to fire that Balverines often have. Blooded Balverines often infest the road to Westcliff. Although not as strong as the superior White Balverine, Blooded Balverines are still dangerous foes, often slashing the hero before quickly jumping away. However, they often let their weaker brethren attack first, so they sort of send their little friends to attack you first, and you can slaughter your way through and then take care of the Blooded Balverine, often by itself. Blooded Balverines make an appearance in Fable 3 as well, often combining in packs along normal Balverines. They retain similar tactics to those in Fable 2, but are usually present in greater numbers. In addition to being found across Mistpeak and Silver Pines, one can usually find Blooded Balverines in the Wheel of Misfortune as well.
Yep, and as mentioned previously before, there's Poison Balverines, which were introduced in the Fable 2 DLC See the Future, although was that not also in the one that we were talking about before, which was the Godwyn Manor or whatever it was, Traitor's Keep, I think it was. But anyway, it was. I think it was in. Okay, so that was Traitor's Keep was Fable 3, and See the Future was in Fable 2. So Poison Balverines are first encountered in the Costume Party quest in Fable 2. Although they behave much more like normal Balverines, Poison Balverines are visually very distinct, with green-coloured fur and sometimes emitting a green trailing smoke. Poison Balverines are most dangerous for their disorienting attacks, which result in the hero's vision getting blurry as if drunk, making combat difficult but much more fun. They then return en masse in the Fable 3 DLC Traitor's Keep, making their appearance in the quest Traitor's Keep the Menagerie. Ambushing the hero as they explore the gardens of the Godwyn estate, Poison Balverines retain their disorienting abilities. However, Poison Balverines change their tactics in Fable 3, preferring massive swarm attacks that can easily overwhelm a careless hero. So I think it's established that Mary Godwin was the creator of poison Balverines, that they're not like a naturally occurring beast, but one that has been almost like genetically modified by Mary Godwin.
Yeah, and I guess they were successful enough to kind of almost form their own pack, their own sort of bloodline almost, that has continued down. So pretty interesting. The next one here is corrupted Balverines, tainted with the corruption, glowing orange-red in appearance. These Balverines are similar to their ordinary brethren in all ways except for one. They are almost invulnerable to damage, largely due to the corruption shielding them. The only way to harm these Balverines is to use the light power obtained from the Wellstone of Soul.
Yeah, that's it. So we've got a bit of, I guess, trivia on Balverines to go through, and then it's pretty much going to be it. So those are all the types of Balverines that you come across throughout the games. So first bit of trivia is in the original Fable. A non-hostile Balverine is found in a cage by the door as you enter the arena. If you kill it, everyone will exclaim as though you killed an innocent person.
That's really interesting, actually. That's almost like an Easter egg or something.
Animal rights, man. Animal rights.
Yeah.
Hug a tree.
In Fable, killing 1019 guards in Oakvale will start spawning white Balverines in their place.
Mm-hmm.
If your fine is paid, they become passive, making them the only friendly white Balverines in the game.
Mm-hmm.
These white Balverines have more health than regular white Balverines. They replace the Knothole Glade white Balverine summon. Reloading Oakvale with the white Balverine still inside will make their health extremely small, making it that even the stick can one-shot kill them. After being made passive, leaving and re-entering Oakvale will make it that they can't be locked onto. These white Balverines talk like guards and can be put on breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Townsfolk still fear these Balverines even if the Balverines are passive and are supposed to be guards, which is very interesting. I feel like that's another sort of Easter egg that's very strange.
That's pretty cool. The actual name Balverine, which was been a bit of a source of my speculation for a while, did originate from a road name near designer Dean Carter's house, Balvernie Grove. Frequent misreadings on his commute led him to adopt it as a name for the forest-dwelling creatures. So I always thought, with the term Wolverine, that the Verrine part would have been, because of that. But obviously not.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure in hindsight they were probably like, yeah, it sounds a lot like Wolverine as well, so that's pretty good, but there you go.
Yep.
So the Balverine's weakness to silver is a reference to werewolves' vulnerability to silver bullets, which is obviously a similarity between the two again.
Yeah. With the information that was provided by Lilith in Fable 2 and Reeva's party guest in Fable 3, it can be concluded that at some point in time the Balverines evolved so that they could maintain a human appearance and transform at will, rather than remain in their monster form indefinitely. This is further explained in the Balverine Order that only humans bitten during the midnight hour during a full moon have this ability.
Yep. In Fable 2, Sister Hannah sings a song mentioning the white Balverines, so again they're still part of folklore during Fable 2. In Fable 2, Sister Hannah also tells a story on the road to Westcliff that concerns Balverines. According to legend, some children were sold as slavers while in their cage. They turned savage and tore apart everyone in the camp. This seems to be a reference to the Balverines' ability to shapeshift at will.
Yeah. Balverines generally are encountered in the presence of rain or when the clock's at night time, rather than during the day in sunny conditions. I think this is referenced by the fact that in Darkwood I believe Darkwood is like permanent night, even though it's a daytime on the clock. So you can always encounter them in Darkwood, and in Witchwood it's always raining, so you can always encounter them in Witchwood as well. In Fable 2, if you use the will ability Shock on a Balverine, it will show a human skeleton during the effect. And also when you kill a Balverine with Shock, a rather elongated human skeleton will remain. This supports that theory that Balverines are transformed humans, just like werewolves.
Yep, Balverines in Fable 2 are weaker than the ones in Fable and Fable the Lost Chapters, possibly because they are considered common enemies now. However, their difficulty is restored once again in Fable 3, so I think in terms of lore, they're still the same.
Yeah, so Balverines will never actually bite the player and will only use their claws to attack, which gives no opportunity for the player to become infected, unlike Skyrim.
Yeah, As shown in Fable, when a person starts changing into a Balverine, they start acting like it. For example, they would start craving human flesh as well. So there is a sort of hunting craving that they have.
Yeah. Also, when someone does change into a Balverine, a red mist circles around them.
The description of howling cheese seems to suggest that Balverines are capable of producing milk, though how and why one would milk a Balverine is completely unknown. And I hope that remains unknown for the rest of foreseeable future.
God milk. It's disgusting, man. White Balverines are known to be humans who were bitten by a Balverine during a full moon, unlike the regular Balverines. So yeah, we know that. And then it is mentioned by Reeva that the guests at his party were a part of a secret society. This could still be a reference to the Balverine Order from the book by Peter David.
Yep, in Fable 3, Balverines count as larger enemies for the purposes of legendary weapon upgrades. And in Fable 2, Balverines seem vulnerable to fire. The will ability Inferno can kill a normal Balverine very quickly, and a high level can kill several in one casting.
It is mentioned by Reeva in Fable 3 that he toyed with the idea of becoming a Balverine himself, but then he says that his pretty face was worth more. Classic Reeva.
In the original Fable and TLC, if you stab a dead Balverine, you can still hear its growl, which is pretty funny.
And in Fable 3, some of the potential morphs for hero weapons are Balverine themed. These morphs can also be seen on legendary weapons like Avo's Lamentation, the Barnamificator, the Hero's Companion, and the pre-ordered only Hammer the Champion. There is also some weapon upgrade objectives which require the killing of wolves or Balverines, such as the Lunarian Pounder, and the limited collector's edition sword Wolfsbane. Makes sense.
In Fable 3, if the player destroys the Silver Nitrate torches in order to let the Balverines attack the village in Silver Pines, Connor will tell the hero that they are always welcome in Silver Pines. He seems to go back on his promise, as any Balverines in the area will still attack you as they did before, which is kind of annoying.
Game scripting, man. Game scripting.
Yeah, but there you go. That's all we have on Balverines. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If there's any, do you have any extra theories or things you want to talk about on Balverines before we close off?
Nah, just again, as we were mentioning earlier, there's one of those enemies that sometimes has that annoying attack. I always find that I'm an impatient gamer, so when I'm going through and I'm trying to just hack and kill as quick as possible, when they do that jump up in the air and disappear for ages, it's like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And the other thing was, I guess the other thing is, I think it's one of my favourite enemies, to be honest, in the whole of Fable. In terms of some of that lore around them. In terms of the name, like, it's such a unique name, despite the fact that it's, you know, you even know without knowing Balverine is going to be like a werewolf. You know, if you just think of the name, like, it's so different, but it's so obvious when you think about it. I really like Balverines.
Yeah, I agree. They're definitely one of my favorite enemy types, and I think it's really, really cool, the whole concept of white Balverines. And I think eventually the concept of other sort of subspecies of Balverine is a really, really cool idea. Like, almost like dogs in modern day society, with how we have all the different breeds. It's kind of similar in Fable, how the only ones that survive into all the way up until Fable 3 and beyond are the ones that are actually successful. So, you know, you've still got the white Balverines, you've still got the sort of fodder basic level Balverine, and then, you know, a couple others that are able to consistently stay alive through the generations. But I'm sure there were many, many other species of Balverine in the past that just aren't able to survive long enough to procreate, almost. So it's pretty cool.
And much love for the Knothole Glade Hornblower to when the white Balverine shows up again, because that's an awesome horn sound.
It is, yeah. But with that, I hope we see them again if there is a Fable 4, which we're still hearing a lot of rumors about. I really, really hope we do see them again in some way or another. I'm sure we will. But until then, that's all we have on Balverines, so thank you very much for watching, and we'll happily see you next time. See you guys.
I'm starting to turn. Get away from me.
Whoops. Not good.